Welcome to the Upshot, multi-world disc golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. And, well, first and foremost, Josh, glad to have you back. Hope you're feeling a little better.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I missed the show, that's for sure. It was great to have Steve fill in, though.
Always great to catch up with Steve, and but you know we're excited to have you back. And now I'm under the weather, so here we are together. But we're pushing through for you, the listener, and I don't think I have COVID. As far as I can still smell my coffee, so at least right now I have a sore throat and like I'm a little congested. So I'm thinking it's just a cold, which it's weird to get sick because it's been a really long time since I've been sick. Because, you know, wearing a mask all the time and like not going to parties for almost a year, like definitely keeps you from getting sick.
It does.
We're back, baby. Okay, so tomorrow in most places, I know here in New York and I know in Idaho, is election day. Mansfield for Pocatello.
That's right.
What's the latest? How are you Are there polls for your race?
No, there are not polls for our race. I wish there were polls though, because the worst part about it is like you put in all this work and you see no return for it, right? I mean, I see my signs in yards. I've got radio ads running. I see things, but it doesn't at the end of the day, like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if it's working. I will say, though, we had a trick-or-treat event in our downtown on Friday, and I had a lot of people. Early voting ended last Friday, and I had a lot of people who said, oh, don't worry, I already voted, and I voted for you. And it was a lot of people who I didn't know, so it seems like it's getting out. All I can say is I can't wait for tomorrow to be over. Campaigning's a grind. It's a grind. I'm glad it's done.
Did you like hire a veteran campaign manager or something like that?
No.
I was wondering, how do people know what to do on like a political campaign, right? Because obviously this is a small scale thing relative to running for senator or president or something. For
sure.
But you know, you have to do all these events. You have to go to these places. You got a glad hand. You got to kiss babies, the whole thing. And I'm just like, how do people decide what they should be doing? I figured you need somebody who has a clue about that kind of stuff, but it sounds like that's not what you did.
So I had a campaign manager who was a friend of mine, whose major is in image management and marketing.
Okay.
So I picked her to help me kind of with picking like messaging and those things. But then I had a couple of great people just in my life who have volunteered a lot of time to help me with it. And then in terms of like overall direction, I'm endorsed by our current mayor. And he does hire a campaign manager for this time. Mayor being a full-time job, it makes sense. So he hires a campaign manager, and I kind of go to events with him. We talk with his campaign manager as well. They're like, don't waste your time with TV ads in terms of bang for your buck. Go with radio. So those kind of things I talk to them a little bit about, who have done 4 elections now. So
do you think this is so I feel very confident for you. I mean, just from afar, knowing nothing about the race.
I appreciate that.
I assume do you see yourself as the favorite here?
It's weird because the person running against me has nearly 25 years of local, like, kind of intergovernmental, inter-business organization experience in Pocatello. But she's not really campaigning that hard. Like, she's got some signs out and she did a little bit of canvassing. So I don't have quite the same name recognition, but I have definitely outworked her in the campaign. So, I mean, we'll see at the end of the day, but I know that the other city council members who I'm kind of friends with have told me that they feel very confident in my race. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to be watching the returns on the State of Idaho website.
I'll send you some pictures. We'll be at a party, of course, watching the polling locations reporting in.
Great. Have fun.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So, I know I feel bad you got left out of this, but we talked about the schedule. We get some more schedule talk today because
we do.
Literally this morning, as we were sitting down to record, the PDGA released the A-Tier schedule, which includes the Pro Tour Silver Series stops as well as the EuroTour stops. So we're going to get a chance to chat about that. But we talked about the full schedule last week when Steve was here. And we also talked a little bit about Kristen Tatar's new contract. Drew Gibson's new contract. And so I just wanted to see if you had anything you wanted to add.
The big thing I wanted to add, when I saw Kristen Tatar's schedule or contract release, and she had, said exactly what the details were, and Drew Gibson's obviously a little bit weird in terms of the value. It's kind of hard to determine exactly what his value is going to be, especially with him like creating the own lineup and stuff like that. But for Kristen Tatar, I think that we're seeing the beginning of the end of the contract secrecy. I think that it's going to become commonplace that manufacturers who want to show what their star players are making. I think we're going to know what Ricky makes the next time he signs a contract. I think we're going to know what Eagle makes the next time he signs a contract. I think I agree that I think Missy Gannon's contract will probably be public knowledge, because at that point it becomes, right now, I think it's a case of it's an advantage to kind of release and show what your big players are making because it's news. It makes it exciting. And it's going to become the norm that most of our top players get very public released. And I think eventually even those who aren't common names, at the top 10 regularly are going to have contract figures released as well. It's the way every sport goes. I think it's in the player's best interest for it to happen. And as we've talked about before, I wouldn't be shocked if disc golf gets together a players union of some sort that kind of demands that contracts are public knowledge. So I think it's the beginning of the opening of the floodgate for that kind of information.
It is an interesting balance. You think about why has it been secret in the past? Well, I think that's largely because manufacturers had strong incentive to not publicly announce what everyone's getting paid, because then you're going to have people coming to you and being like, hey, if so-and-so is getting X dollars and I'm better than them, I should be getting Y dollars, X plus 100,000 or whatever. And I think that dynamic still exists. You think about how many players are on the, these rosters, quote unquote, for the manufacturers. It's too many for them to start just like announcing everybody's contract. But I do think we're going to see, so I agree in part with what you're saying. I do think we're going to see the big ticket names get their contracts announced. Because like who really at Latitude 64 is going to be like, oh, I should be getting paid more than Kristen Tatar. At least other FPO players. Like you don't have a claim to that. And so I think that we're going to see when there's, good PR to be gained. Like, let's say Missy Gannon's new contract comes in lower than Kristen Tatar's, which is very plausible, right? Mm-hmm. Steve set the number at 100K, annual. Missy doesn't have the same Instagram influence clout that Kristen does, and probably isn't at least not as proven a player. I think you can argue about whether she's as good a player or not. I mean, by rating, Kristen Tatar's better. By consistency, I would say Kristen Tatar has proven to be better. But obviously, Missy Gannon coming off this great stretch, you could imagine that she's going to get a big contract. The thing is, if it comes in under 125, is the company that whoever ends up signing her to this new endorsement deal, are they going to want to announce it? Like, that could look bad, potentially. So I think it's an interesting dynamic. I do think players benefit, for sure, from even just some data points. Mm-hmm. Like, I think, as I said last week, I think the fact that this number is out there from Tatar strengthens the hand of Gannon in negotiations. And, of course, companies are going to be wary about making it too easy for players to negotiate bigger contracts.
Well, and the other thing that I think complicates this discussion is that contract figures in the past were very easily determined based on performance before disc golf, even in the past 5 years, I think, in its growth and popularity, it really was pretty easy to say you have X number of majors, you get a contract that is X, as X size. But now it's about the question of how many discs can you move? What does your Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook profiles look like? What kind of marketing do you do? And it's always been about that. But I think that in the era of social media, that and the prominence of it, I think that it is changed the dynamic a little bit, where you can have players who aren't the most winningest players right now who still can get Brody Smith. There's your example, right? Brody Smith, who gets major contract, and I don't know if we know the details of that. I don't remember, but I didn't think so. But comes largely from his social media personality, becomes complicating about how, Missy Gannon may have, $75,000 a year, right? And people may not. It's a question of, is she prominent enough on social media? And those factors that go into play, I think, do complicate the discussion. And so I agree that manufacturers are probably going to be wary about how much they release at first, but I don't think it's going to be stopped. I think it's going to it's inevitable.
My take is that we're going to see a significant decrease in the number of players that get sort of high-level sponsorships from manufacturers. Does everybody who claims to be professional deserve to get a contract with a manufacturer? I mean, the manufacturer's job is to sell discs. It's not to have a team of players that competes on the course. Like that's a tiny sliver of what is important, right? Their job is to sell discs, and obviously they see, and historically has been shown, that they will sell more discs if they have endorsed players endorsing their discs who are professionals. And I do think there are players who are going to move the needle, but number 65 ranked pro probably not going to move the needle. So I sort of wonder, will we see a sea change in the industry overall as the importance of having a top player endorse your discs becomes ever more important? I think this is definitely, Pareto principle at play, maybe even to an extreme. 20% of the players move 80% of the discs that you could attribute to endorsement, right? And probably 5% of players move 50% of the discs that get sold based on somebody saying, oh, I want to buy this disc because this player said I should get it, or they throw it, or whatever. And of course, that whole market, I still feel like, is this tiny sliver of the overall disc golf market, which is dominated by people going into Dick's Sporting Goods, and Play It Again Sports and whatever. So it's just interesting. Disc golf's done the endorsement thing the same way for a long time, but I think you're going to start to see the value of the top contracts really exploding, and that means that there's going to be less left for everyone else.
I'm a part of a lot of Facebook pages, buy-sell pages, discussion pages, the whole 9 yards. I like to use it to help keep up on news. And I saw a thing, Colton Montgomery's Exo Hard Link, the Arctic thing, signature disc came out last week, I think. And I mean, Discmania, discs go up and then they are gone. They get bought out so fast right now. There are still, last time I looked, I saw posts that days later there were thousands of discs still left of the Arctic thing. And I think it's a combination of, one, it's probably not Discmania's most popular molds. But on the other hand, it's also not one of his most popular pros. I think if you stuck Eagle McMahon's name on a link and said this is Eagle McMahon's new Imperial Eagle run, those things would sell out so fast. And so I think you're right. And do you think this looks like, because Innova and all of them have, I know Innova, the champion team, and then or star team and then champion team. Do you think that looks like more of that tier system where you have, and do you think champion team becomes, or star team, sorry, it becomes a little bit more exclusive, and then they have a bigger pack behind who maybe get a signature disc and a little bit more, and that's it?
I mean, I think there's already tiering within the tiers. You know, I think that not everyone on Star Team, for example, gets the same treatment and the same contract.
True.
You know, I have to imagine that Ricky's contract is better than the boilerplate standard Star Team contract. I don't know that, but I would assume that, given Ricky's ability to, you know, move the needle in a way that other players cannot. But yes, I think so. And I think, again, like, how many endorsing players does your company need? I think that's also a question. Like, Discmania is doing really well despite having, what, 6 known names that endorse their product, right? I mean, like, most of us can probably name the player, and like there are more than that. I know they have probably a bunch of random like street team or whatever they call them people, but like when you really think about like who is moving the needle for Discmania, it's Simon, it's Eagle, Nate Perkins, Ella Hansen to some extent,
Kyle Klein,
and like there you go. You know, Colton Montgomery, but like, you know, there's levels to this.
Yeah.
Simon Eagle, and now I think Kyle Klein, that you can just pay them. That's it. No one else. Everyone else gone. Bye. You're all fired. And you're still going to move a ton of plastic because of that. And that's what I mean. It's just the value of pro number 75. It's not linear, right? It's not like you just add up all, you know, one company has pros 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the next company has pros 6 through 100. Company with 1 through 5 is going to outsell 6 through 100. So we'll see what happens. I'm curious because like manufacturers seem to be really open to just like giving anybody a sponsorship, even if that just means them sending you a box of 25 discs, and then you have to throw exclusively their bag and like hype them up. I mean, that's a good deal for them.
Yeah.
You know? But I think the days of like being able to just kind of grind it out on tour with a contract because you're pretty good, it's going to get harder.
So do you think those players, because what we've seen in the past is like OTB, for example, was only the primary sponsor of tours until they really got the name recognition. And then those players got picked up by manufacturers. Do you think that continues where OTB, Infinite Discs, you know, retailers, not manufacturers, are like your B tier, I guess? You know, they pick up those. Yes. Okay, so that's what you think. And what I think is interesting, you know, I thought Infinite Discs I really thought they might be like showing us a different way to do sponsorships, and that Infinite Discs may eventually create the kind of clout and financial power to retain 2 or 3 really good pros. And then Drew Gibson came out with this manufacturing line for himself. And I was like, no, I don't think it's the case anymore. I don't believe that OTB or Infinite Discs, with their current, you know, OTB having, I believe, 0 manufacturing power and Infinite Discs having limited manufacturing power, are going to have the capacity to garner the attention and sign the top pros. Like, I don't think we will ever see a Ricky sign an exclusive Infinite Discs deal.
I mean, probably not, at least not for now.
Yeah.
It's just the manufacturers sell so many more discs than the retailers.
Yeah.
You know, like, and Infinite is huge, right? I you know, it's hard to know where the market share lies, but you know, they're the biggest by a margin.
Yeah.
And yet, you know, they're still reliant on the manufacturers to send them products to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And the manufacturers are like, well, we got to fill all of the Dick's Sporting Goods stores. And like, there's levels to it. It's the same concept, right? So I think it's interesting though, but like OTB is a great example because OTB got big and now they're getting talked about on this podcast because they took a very expansive approach to sponsoring professional players. That's what I think. And then the like skins thing, the skins matches on YouTube. They're a random retailer in California. Why should I care about them? There's no people have weird loyalties in disc golf, but I've never ordered from OTB Discs, but I
have.
Like they have great service. They they list the weight, they list the shape, they ship it out, and seems like they have great customer service. And so people are going to be like, oh, that was a good experience. I'll buy a disc from them. But the reason people buy discs from them in the first place is because they've aggressively pursued pro sponsorships and gotten pros to put OTB on their back and OTB on their Instagram and blah, 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 blah. And, it's not like that's not a replicable model. So when you say, is it like the B tier of sponsorship? Yes, because I think other companies are going to try the same thing, having seen that it's possible to get big via, the marketing mechanism of professional players.
Birdie Disc Golf, I think, is a great example. It's I believe, an online exclusive retailer who signed. They had Casey White on their team for a long time, and I think this past season they just signed Ricky, and he has a secondary sponsorship with them. Do a lot of events, publicity. Got Ricky's name all over. They do signature Casey White discs. In lieu of Discmania doing them, and they're now producing their own putter and manufacturing it. And so they're going to have their own exclusive putter mold. And I think the only reason they're as big as they are is because they've caught a couple of really big names who've gotten them good publicity and now are definitely bigger, I think, in the past 2 years, even with Casey White and then Wysocki, than they were ever before. So it's
very interesting.
We see it often. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Silver Series schedule that just came out. So we've been kind of waiting to see what's going to be on the Silver Series, what's not. And the schedule is out. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 Silver Series events, if I'm counting correctly. And here they are. Some that we saw on the tour this year, others that are new. Some that we also knew were going to be coming, which includes the Masters Cup and the Beaver State Fling, which were both on the national tour in 2021, but will be on the Silver Series in 2022, as we discussed last week. So they are Open at Belton in mid-March, Music City Open in Tallahassee, which was an NT as well, but will be a Silver Series this year, early April. So that will be like before Champions Cup.
Isn't Music City Open in Nashville?
What did I say?
You said Tallahassee.
Well, I saw Tallahassee on the next line, but yes, it's Nashville.
Nashville, okay.
Instant mulligan. Yes, Nashville. So kind of on the way from Texas towards Georgia to play Champions Cup. Then Open at Tallahassee the next weekend in April, which I believe also is right before Champions Cup. I'd have to check the dates, but I'm pretty sure. And then Masters Cup in mid-May, Beaver State Fling in early June, Mid-America Open in early August, Pittsburgh Flying Disc Open. Heard a lot of rumors about this one, and it is happening. It'll be on the Silver Series in early September, once the tour heads out to the East Coast. Lake Marshall Open, October 28th to 30th, and the New World Championship in early November, November 11th to 13th. And notably, those last two events come after the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships. So what do you think about this, Josh?
Couple of thoughts. Music City Open and Open at Tallahassee, I don't imagine being very well attended. And this is assuming that we see some Silver Series that feel like the Open at Belton was last year, where you had basically every pro who played it as well. A couple sit out, but is pretty... I'd imagine, given the events that are on here and the name recognition of some of them, like Masters Cup and Beaver State Fling, I expect to be pretty well attended still. Coming from NTs, you have players who are really big fans of them. Eagle, who is pretty conservative with the schedule, I would be surprised if he doesn't play Beaver State Fling. That's an event he's talked long about. I think it was a big win of his early on in his career. Masters Cup, I would expect probably Ricky will be there. So I think some of these events are going to be pretty well attended, given that the Music City Open and Open at Tallahassee are on your way to Champions Cup. I imagine most players are going to prefer the week of practice in Georgia over playing these Silver Series. And so I don't expect these to be well attended. What I'm most interested in, though, without a doubt, is the New World Championship in Florida in November. And I'm really interested in a couple of reasons. Number one, we don't see a lot of events in Florida, and I don't know if we've ever seen anything, Silver Series or otherwise, Silver Series, Elite Series in Florida before. Is there? What am I missing?
The New World Championship, former home of the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship.
Oh, okay. So we have then. That's right. Okay.
But that is the only one that I know of off the top of my head. But there's a lot more Florida on this year's schedule than in the past.
Yes. So I like that we're going back to Florida. This is something we've talked about. I think Florida is ripe for off-season disc golf and making the tour more expansive. I mean, November 13th, and I would be, guessing Vegas is early February, like usual. You're looking at 2 months. You're shortening the off season. And here's the other thing I'm interested in. I'm interested, I guess, two things that I'm interested in. Two other things. One, Jeff Spring has said there are that for some tournaments, the Silver Series is and I mean, I guess this is, I asked Jeff about this in a subscriber bonus a couple months ago when he said this is a trial run for some events and they either make the cut or they don't. And I asked him about Goat Hill, and I'm like, well, Goat Hill is never going to be on the Pro Tour. Does that mean it's going to get dropped off the Silver Series? And at the time he's like, well, it's probably going to be just a long running Silver Series event, but Goat Hill is not on the Silver Series this year. So it looks like the Silver Series truly are becoming a testing ground for getting events onto the Pro Tour. So I'm interested if are we going to see the New World Championship kind of fill in and look like a Pro Tour event moving forward? And number two, I want to know when All-Stars weekend is for the European Pro Tour, because they talked about that being in November in Spain. And
right.
and they were going to try and recruit some of the top names from the US to come participate as well. And so I'm interested to see where that falls on the schedule, how those two tournaments, if they're near each other, kind of affect the dynamic. If anyone's going to attend the New World Championship, if that's the case. And are we going to see an expansion of the tour? If, let's say, New World Championship is a just smashing success, are we going to see the tour expanded in time for the Elite Series? Do we have events that are Elite Series, not just Silver Series, but actual Pro Tour events that go all the way into November if this is successful?
It's just a matter of time, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think this is showing you that there's going to be at least a push towards hosting more events in the offseason. Because remember, the Pro Tour has an incentive to do this as well. Mm-hmm. Not only for just like year-round marketing, but for Disc Golf Network. Like having actual events to show, and they just broadcasted the National Amateur Tournament this past weekend, Dave Feldberg's whole series. And, I can't say that I tuned in and watched, but there are some people who are going to want to tune in and watch. Mm-hmm. And, if you have a subscription service, getting people who are not annual payers to keep paying that monthly fee for the off season is really beneficial. And, you want to bring value to your subscribers. So I think it's just a matter of time. There's already pros who continue to play tournaments throughout much of October, November, even December in some cases. And then, you start to see players going out to Arizona in January and playing tournaments. So I think, you may not have like an official part of the tour. Like clearly with the Pro Tour Championships in the rearview mirror, I can't imagine that those Silver Series events are going to have any standing towards giving you points. But, we could see a preseason tour that gives you 25% points towards the upcoming Pro Tour Championship in the following year. Like it's easy enough to just decide that you're going to give these things points that have some value at some point, and get people to start playing. Because I think there will be pros who just straight up take 3 months off, and there will be pros who are more regional level or marginal, or not with the fat contracts, that are going to be continuing to play because either they need to or they just love to play. You think about what we heard from Nathan Queen. He just loves to play disc golf, and he's going to play every week. So for him to have the option to go to a tournament that's going to have bigger payouts, that is an A-tier, Silver Series, the whole deal, that's beneficial, right? If you're able to play that instead of a B-tier, you're probably going to make more money, and we're on the path to that.
Exciting.
Let's talk a little bit about the EuroTour as well. Don't be confused. This is not the European Pro Tour with the whole new streaming service. That's separate. That's a different thing. But there is also the PDGA EuroTour, and it's got stops starting in Forester. It's in Croatia in March. Then a couple months off before the Kokkedal Open in Denmark in mid-May. The Heatland Open in Sweden in a week after that in May. Then the Nokia Open in Finland in June. The Alutaguse Open in Estonia in early July. The PCS Sula Open mid-July, right before the European Open. And then the Belgian Open in September to close it out. So that's your EuroTour schedule, which I think had been released before, but now we're sort of seeing it in the full context with everything else. I was just looking at the European Pro Tour website as well, and it says on there that players will be able to play all of the European events if they so choose. So there's not going to be any like overlapping conflict, at least, between European Pro Tour events and EuroTour events, which I acknowledge is confusing. It's also confusing for me, and I'm sure I'm going to make a mistake talking about it. But there it is, PDGA EuroTour. It feels like the European scene is going from 0 to 60 really fast.
Look, I want to have a word with some of these Europeans. We just fixed the whole two-tour nonsense over here. Knock it off. No, it makes sense, though, right? I mean, we've got the European Pro Tour that is in its infancy, that is unproven, and we need to see how it's going to go. And then you have your more traditional EuroTour. It's going to be interesting in a couple of ways. First, do these tours have different feels to them right off the bat? We've talked about how pro tours and pros really like Pro Tour events here, DGPT events in the US, as opposed to the NTs. And so, I mean, we had a lot of that feedback from pros. I'm curious to hear if we're going to hear any feedback about which tour they prefer on the European side. The second point I'm interested in seeing is, now that we're seeing what I feel like is one of the more expansive tours that we've ever seen in Europe between the two of them, I'm curious to see because this year, for example, and this is COVID related, of course, but we would watch the top pros in Europe. We would notice some of the events, but it wasn't, it was kind of like a one-off. It was like, oh, this weekend, Kristen Tatar won this event, beat Evelina and Henna Blemmers. So I'm curious to see if, now that we have a little bit more of a comprehensive tour, and this also depends on which Europeans come over and play the US tour, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, but I think that European tour could very well start to become a predictor of people we're going to see over in the US in the next year, given how expansive it is, given what I believe is going to be a pretty competitive tour, and increasingly so, obviously, as time goes on. And so I think now that it's becoming that that expansive. It's kind of a grind to hit them all. You're going to start to see names that you're going to say, oh, this guy's won 4 events in a row, or he's won 4 events this year. And that's going to be significant enough that we're going to remember his name when they go over for the European Championship or the European Open. And the question of who, we already talked about this with juniors. We talk about AMs. We say, who's the next up and coming face in the Pro Tour? We're going to ask ourselves that as well from the European side. And I think that it's largely thanks to a conducive and tour that allows people to go on full tour.
It's going to be like European basketball in the NBA.
Yep.
It's like, it's a big deal. European basketball, it's really popular. It makes the people make a bunch of money. It's a whole thing. But, you see the top players float to the top and then they get signed to an NBA team. And maybe they work out and maybe they don't. But that's generally the progression that you see. And you also see, some former NBA players or washouts end up playing over in Europe. And I think we could see sort of a similar model for now, where it's like there's kind of this separate thing that's popular in Europe, but still the biggest money, the biggest payouts, the most media notoriety, and the biggest sales market in the world is in the United States. And so you're going to see the top players, as we have seen, coming over to the U.S. and playing more and more of the tour in the United States. And, I think eventually someday it will probably get big enough that, there will be European players who just sort of live and tour full time in the United States. I'm not sure we're quite there yet. Simon Lizotte is the kind of exception that proves the rule. Most European players come over for a little bit and then go back and live at home, which I understand that, people don't want to be away from their home the whole year. So, but I think, as the sport continues to grow, it's going to end up looking more like the PGA Tour, where that's kind of commonplace. And then, the President's Cup is going to become really awesome at some point. And I'm looking forward to that day when it's all covered live and there's big stadiums and people come over from Europe to cheer on the Europeans. I guess right now it's all played in Europe, so vice versa. The Americans have to travel to Europe to root for the U.S. team. So yeah, it'll be interesting. The rest of the A-Tier schedule is up now on the PDGA website. We're not going to go through all the A-Tiers, but lots of big names. You mentioned Goat Hill. It is an A-Tier this year, but I actually worked with Alan Risley at my tournament, the TD of Goat Hill. Great guy. And he had mentioned to me while I was out there in San Diego that he hadn't heard anything about the Silver Series, so he was thinking that he probably wasn't going to be, that Goat Hill wasn't going to be on it. And he said to me, and he said this in the past, he feels like it's a mistake for the Pro Tour not to be focusing on having tournaments in large metro areas. Like there's nothing in Southern California right now. Like Masters Cup, that's Northern California. OTB Open, that's Northern California. Where, are you serving the Los Angeles market really right now for disc golf? I think you could say that the answer is no. What's the plan? I do think long term, you need to have a plan for that.
That's a compelling argument. That I agree with that. And I think seeing Pittsburgh, for example, on Silver Series is a start towards recognizing that. I think Florida being another example. I'm not sure where, what is that tournament called? New World Championship? Jacksonville. Yeah. So it's clear that the Pro Tour is addressing that. You've got Portland Open. So they're getting there, but I agree that SoCal probably needs to be included and represented in that.
We got to get a New York City course, baby. We need a championship gold level New York City course. It's never happened.
It's an urban park. You play between the taxis.
Never happened. What was I going to say? Oh, Pittsburgh. That city should have an Elite Series event every single year. Mm-hmm. Full stop. I mean, they've had a World Championships there. They've had NTs there. Pittsburgh Flying Disc Open should be on the Elite Series, and let's just get that done. Let's get that done. Interesting to see what will come of this. I think there are some new stops on this. So really quick, tournaments that are not on the Silver Series this year, or in 2022, that were in 2021, Vintage Open, Challenge of Goat Hill, Resistance Disc Open, which that sort of makes sense. That was kind of like a stopgap event. Clash at the Canyons and Stafford Open. And by the way, Delaware Disc Golf Challenge is just an A-tier this year. It will not be on the Elite Series. So we went from NT in 2021 to A-tier in 2022. So, I think we'll probably see some of this year's Silver Series events be made into Elite Series events, full DGPT events in 2023. And I think Pittsburgh is one of them.
Ooh, that's interesting. In 2023. That's your take. All right. I don't know if I agree, and I think it's just because there are a couple other events on the Silver Series that are going to take priority. Beaver State Fling, for example. I mean, they've talked a lot about it. There was a lot of...
Are they, though? Like, are you going to have back-to-back events in the Portland area on the Pro Tour?
Maybe.
I think, like, a combo event is more likely than a full inclusion. I mean, I could be wrong.
All right.
But they don't really do that right now.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm interested to see. I'm really interested to see if you're right there. You mentioned AJ Risley helping you with your tournament. Alan Risley. Father
of AJ.
Alan Risley helping you with your tournament. I just want to say, during that week, I watched the Ultimate Club Championships.
Oh, you watched a little Ultimate Frisbee?
I did, yes. So Andrew Fish had a tweet, and it said, tell me where you're from and who you want to root for, like which region you want to root for, which region you love to root against, and how important is winning to you. And then he'd give you a couple teams to root for. And so I did that, and I enjoyed it. There were Ultimate, I found it kind of hard to understand at first. Like the whole soft cap, hard cap.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
horrible.
It was kind of confusing. I couldn't understand how fouls or I don't remember what the rules the penalties are called.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to try to get into it here, but
anyway,
also confusing. I acknowledge that.
There was a lot that was confusing to me, but I enjoyed it. And the one thing, though, that I do regret is I have now got some followers, and I follow a lot more Ultimate people on Twitter. Huge mistake. Ultimate Twitter is a weird place. And I'm sure Ultimate players say the same thing about disc golf Twitter, but man, I just was not prepared. People are really intense about their water bottles in Ultimate. I saw a lot of tweets about losing water bottles and cleaning your water bottles. I don't know. They really particular about water bottles. So
did you watch the Ultiworld live streams?
I did.
The ESPN live
Nope,
streams?
I watched the Ultiworld live streams.
Let's get your honest take on the Ultiworld live streams. You've watched lots of live disc golf.
I have watched lots. I was impressed with the production quality. You had said before that Ultiworld is kind of the name when it comes to Ultimate and broadcasting, and so I went on and I had seen YouTube clips of Ultimate before, and just videos, and they were always grainy and on the other side of the field and really bad. I was really impressed by
a lot of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I was really impressed with the production quality. I thought that the commentators were excellent. It felt like I was listening to the Nate Sextons. There were a pair of Nate Sextons in every one that I watched, and I was very impressed with that. They sounded very knowledgeable. They were very intelligent about the way that they spoke about it. They had appropriate emotion. I was very, very impressed with your commentators. So you can tell them I give hats off to them.
I'll pass it along.
I wish I understood better what was going on. That was my one.
Like disc golf, Ultimate is self-officiated and governed by spirit of the game.
Okay.
In disc golf, sort of the rule situations are usually pretty understandable and clear.
Mm-hmm.
Is it in or is it out? Did it miss the man or did it make the Mando? In Ultimate, things get very murky and there's lots of weird rules. And yes, there are observers on the field that are sort of like referees, but not really, but they can make binding rulings if the players ask them to. And they can also give out cards, kind of like in soccer, but they basically don't do anything unless you get a bunch of them.
Like how many of them?
Well, you have to get 3 to have a yardage penalty assessed against you.
And what
against your team?
What? Okay, sorry. One question and then I'll quit. But what is a yardage penalty exactly?
Well, it depends on whether you're on offense or defense. But basically, the team that commits the infraction, the other team would get to, let's say the other team was on offense, they would get to advance the disc up basically into the red zone.
Okay.
And it's very rare. It almost never happens. I mean, you see it, but
I didn't see it in any of the matches I watched.
And it's kind of like it's a bad system. If you ask me, it's a bad system.
Okay.
Like, the structure is there for it to be a good system, but it doesn't really make any sense. I actually think the disc golf rule system right now is also a bad system. Like the way that we deal with it in the professional level is like ask players to, make all of the calls. And so basically Ultimate has sort of like over the last 20 years moved further and further away from players doing everything to having people there who are objective third parties who can make a ruling. And that's why I think disc golf is going to go that way too.
Yeah.
It's like taking too long in disc golf in some ways. But, the same way everybody talks about foot faults in disc golf, people talk about whether somebody traveled in Ultimate.
Okay.
And
yeah, I saw that.
That's also a bit, and traveling is out of control this year, the way that foot faults are out of control in disc golf. So there's a lot of parallels. It's fun.
The two
I'm glad
things
you tuned in.
Yeah, the 2 things I wanted to say. One, I didn't realize there were different like lineups for offense and defense of Ultimate. I thought that was really interesting. And my favorite division to watch, without question, were the mixed division.
Okay.
Really, really interesting. I loved watching mixed division. So that was, I know you had usually a couple streams concurrently running. I always tuned into the mixed division if it was available. So
nice. What did you like about the mixed division compared to the other two?
I felt like, because, it felt like it was when you play doubles if you were to play doubles with an MPO and an FPO player together and paired up, I think it changes the way that game gets played, because FPO, the way that they're going to attack a course is different than the MPO. And I felt like that was the case of the game. And so you had a team comprised of players who are going to approach it differently, and had to meld their strategies together. And so I felt like there was more personality in the mixed teams as opposed to what felt like 2 teams running very similar personalities and styles against each other in MPO and FPO, or, men and women. So
fascinating. Love it. I mean, they want to get mixed Ultimate into the Olympics. So
I would be a supporter
You're
of that.
ready. You're ready. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the National Amateur Champions, and then we will send you on your way. So stick around. It's the Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Maybe it's time to get yourself a spooky Halloween version of an Octothorpe. You can get your own custom bag on Monday, November 1st, starting at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. That's when registration opens for the next batch of custom bags from Pound. So you can get exactly the bag of your dreams, even in black and orange, just in time for Halloween. Go to pounddiscgolf.com to learn more. And by Diameter Apparel. We all know the difference that confidence brings to disc golf. When you're comfortable, you're focused and confident in your game. Diameter Apparel is for disc golfers who want to be comfortable during their casual, league, and tournament rounds. In fact, Diameter supplies teams and trophy jerseys for many tournaments and events. Made right here in North America, Diameter Apparel's designs stand out and will inspire your best performance. Diameter is breathable, Diameter is durable, Diameter is beautiful. Wear what the pros wear. Diameter Apparel. Go to diameterapparel.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Upshot. The National Amateur Disc Golf Tour National Championships were held this past weekend in Austin, Texas. Dave Feldberg running the show. I got a chance to catch up with him a little bit about it all at USDGC. Great to hear. He's so passionate about this, and it's awesome. And they had 1,268 players at this event. Amazing. Josh, tell us about what happened.
Yeah. MPO had some excitement. Micah Groth wins by 2 over Brett Hanu. And it looked like it was, I mean, I was kind of keeping an eye on scores. I was watching the social media updates, checked in on UDisc. I don't know if it was on UDisc. I checked in on scores occasionally at the end of the rounds. And it was an exciting tournament. And I will say, Micah Groth taking home $10,000. Wow. Good on you. I mean, that's got to be his biggest payout. It's the amateur championships, so
yes, his first payout, assuming he's taking the money. Payout.
Yeah, so congratulations to Micah, and then Aria Castorita winning by 12 strokes on the field. It wasn't even close. I think Aria is going to. What's crazy? She played in the 15U division,
junior under junior girls, 15 and under. And so she won Junior Worlds in that division this year.
Can you say Gannonburg 2.0?
Oh,
I mean,
the kids are getting good.
Kids are getting. I go to tournaments and there will be like 12-year-olds who are playing in my division and playing in like advanced and doing well. And I'm like, why do I even play this? Why am I here? I'm going to go back to my podcast now. But I think Castorita's got I mean, they both obviously have a very bright future in disc golf. I think Castorita especially is going to have a very bright future as an FPO player. So congratulations to both of them.
And just to run it down, in Masters 40 plus, Steve Havner wins over Paul Black. Masters 50 plus, James Gorman wins over Don Van Sant. Amateur Masters Women's 40 plus, Casey Kroll wins over Heather Putnam. And then an intermediate, William Holt gets the win. Intermediate women, Jessica Haga gets the win. Akai Hawelu, hopefully I got that right, wins in rec. And Emma Rafuse wins in rec women's. They also have junior divisions. Finn Sullivan gets the dub in junior under 18. And junior girls under 18, Lillian Waite wins by 6 strokes over Jaden Reynolds. So congratulations to all the champs at the National Amateur National Championships. And yeah, some money on the line. I know one year they gave away a car.
Wow.
And this year, I mean, it's an interesting thing because it's like, I think you can choose whether you're going to like launch into your pro career out of this or if you're going to stick in amateur, decide whether you're going to take the cash or you're going to, take the merch payout or whatever it is. Micah Groth, though, let's talk about him for a second. 999 rated. Mm-hmm. He also competed at Junior Worlds this year in the under 18 division, and he finished 3rd. He did not win. Remember that Cade Filamahalu won in men's. He's currently, what's his rating right now? 1,002. So Micah Groth, though, gets the win here, and another amazing young player out of South Carolina. I feel like they're. Evan Scott was on the top of the freaking leaderboard for a little bit at USDGC, and I don't know what they're doing over in South Carolina, but they're cooking up some really talented young players.
Send me bottles of whatever you give those guys.
So we'll see. I mean, Micah Groth looks like he's almost on tour. How many tournaments he plays?
Yeah.
So a name to keep an eye on in the future as these folks continue. Remember, Kyle Klein won this national amateur tournament before moving on to now stardom on the professional scene.
So, Charlie, what do you think is a better predictor? This national amateur event or Junior Worlds? If you've got to pick one to put stock in, are you picking Cade Filamahala or are you picking Micah Groth?
That's an interesting question. I think in general, Junior Worlds is probably the more prestigious thing to win for that age group, obviously.
Sure.
The thing about this national amateur event is that it's like potentially, you know, a 24-year-old could win or a 21-year-old could win. And like, I think that they both seem to me like really good ways to kind of get a glimpse at, okay, here's a name that we should probably write down in our little notebook and be ready to see in the future. Because, I mean, I think Cade is for sure going to be a really good pro player. And based on this, seems like Mike McGrath is too. And Aria Castrita is 15 years old or younger. So I don't know what else you need to know about that. She's going to be awesome.
She's the easy pick. She won both of them.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think this is still so new, but with big, you know, payouts available and a growing profile, and you know now it's getting live coverage. Like that starts to add up to being like a pretty interesting event, and you know, we'll see. The real question is, how long does it take you to go from like winning these kinds of events to being a notable pro player? That's not immediate in most cases.
Kyle Klein would beg to
3 to
differ,
5 years.
but
That's fair.
I mean, I think even Kyle Klein was 2 though, wasn't he? 2 years.
Yeah, and like he's a little older, right? He's not like 17. He wasn't 17 when he won this tournament.
I think he was 18 though, wasn't he?
Maybe he was.
Because I think I think he's 20 right now.
Damn.
No, I don't think that's because didn't Kyle Klein like go to the prom this year?
I don't know.
I mean, someone went to a prom this year, and I think it was Kyle Klein. Like finished a disc golf pro tour, and then the next week went to prom or something. Someone said in the Discord, hit me up. Let us know. We'll talk about it on Thursday. I'm pretty sure it was Kyle Klein though.
So that's anyway the outcome of the National Amateur Tournament this year. So we're kind of like into the off season now. You know, it's November.
Yeah.
Crazy. We got Thanksgiving coming up. I hope everybody had a great Halloween. I need to play it. There must be good Halloween disc golf tournaments. I've never done one, but like I want to wear a costume and play disc golf. Next year, I'm doing it.
Sounds terrible.
Does it?
Yes.
Maybe.
Unless you're going to wear like barefoot shoes, a flat brimmed hat, and a pair of sunglasses and dress up as Eagle McMahon. Like other than that, I don't know what else I would want to wear.
I have to get that like really garish wave Discmania shirt that he always wears, and that was it Kyle Klein was wearing, and then he like trolled Kyle for wearing it. So good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Subscriber bonus will be out tomorrow, and then we'll see you back here on the main show on Thursday, of course. We got some mailbag, so hit us up. You got some questions for the off-season, anything that's on your mind, upshot@ultiworld.com is the place to send your mail, and we've already got a good list of stuff ready to go. So for Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you then. Hopefully, Josh will be a brand new city councilor when we step in here on Thursday. Although I guess you won't be like sworn in yet, or however they do it.
No. I'll know though. I'll know.
That's right. All right. We'll see you then.